Hello guys. Today we want to look at how to create the main form of a helmet and just to create a little bit of a indent and cutout that kind of smooths out into the surface. So for this lesson, we have a front and a side view of the helmet, which first we need to bring those in, set up our views, and then we'll start building together. I'm just going to go to my front plane, do a sketch, go under sketch tools, sketch pictures. And let's find too many files here. Cycle. So this is I went to the front, so it's going to be the front. So first we need to size the whole helmet. Average size of a helmet is about 14 inch. So I'm just going to drop down a center line and add a 14 inch. So we know how we're sizing this. So setting up the parameters or the sketch of your design, it's pretty important because everything else kind of depends on how well you have centered these, how well you have lined up your side view with the front view, which essentially would be your own design. Okay, as you guys remember, to basically make this slightly transparent, we click on full image. I'm gonna dial it in. Maybe like close to 0.06. That's transparent enough. We press OK. So now we're also going to bring in the right view. So go to the right plane. One more time, a sketch, sketch tools, sketch picture. And here's the side view. Okay. So don't see. Here's my center line from the other one. So I'm just going to put this transparent first so I can see 0.6. And if I rotate this, now I can see my center line here. One thing that's important, we need to add a horizontal center line here so we can make sure the bottom of the helmet sits at the same height as our front view. So I'm going to bring this in, center, and now I'm going to size this helmet. So I'm trying to find the tallest part for the center while making sure the chin hits this line. Seems about centered. And we can always rotate and kind of check. So this height, the tallest part of that curve, they need to be the same. Okay. Now we have both sides. We are ready to start building a model. So it's always good to think about how you would start making this model. To just give you guys an overview, if I look at this model, I'm going to try to analyze what are the similar surfaces that could be built together. So as a main body. So if I look at these curves, they look similar up to here, right? All the top is all very smooth, similar curvature. Here, it feels a bit stretched. And then this is its own curved piece. So here we have like a stretched surface. So we're going to focus on the main piece first here. Sorry for the mouse drawing. We're going to build that main piece and then we can come cut out the extras and then come and add the second part in there. Let me come out. So to create that part, simplest way, there's definitely more than one way to do this, but one way that comes to mind is just basically creating curves here. So we're going to create a curve on this, following that shape, and then another curve following this shape, and then we'll have a curve in the center. And then we'll either do a boundary, we'll talk about this, or we will create a loft surface, and we'll talk about why we would use which one and why is it better. Okay, so this is going to be the first step to start out. Come out of this, discard. We'll come to our right plane, start a new sketch using our spline. That's going to be a 2-point spline. I'm starting at the end of my center line. And I'm going to make sure I'm aligned, the end point is aligned with this horizontal line. Oh, I should set that one up too. We need to make sure all of our lines have the same length. So after we connect them, the bottom of the surface doesn't jump up. So for the first one, we would usually set it up to the horizontal, but this is necessarily not in the middle or horizontal. So we're going to set up the first curve. And then once we do our second sketch, we're going to set that curve to be curvature continuous with the first curve. So with this one, we're just trying our best to match this curvature here. Again, the diamond gives you angle, the arrow gives you pitch, the dot does both of them. So the dot is a lot easier to use to get perfect form. We are ignoring this portion that could be just offsetted later on. So now this is a good curve. Just a good habit is to get some measurements in. I'm just going to keep them. I'm not going to change them. This was already 14. We knew that, and it's already black. Right? This sketch is over. Make sure you come out of the sketch and you start a new sketch again on the right plane. So a new sketch. Make sure that one's black. And one more time. We're using our spline tool. And this time I'm going to set this new spline. Hold shift on the old one and make sure they're equal curvature. So now we can actually measure this to be close to the front. We are only worried about the top portion. We're going to recreate this whole side later on. So all we're trying to match is the top of the head, because these are all one surface. Up to here, they're all one surface. From here, we're changing. This surface and this surface are completely different. Okay, that looks good. Should slightly more. Okay. Also give a measurement to this to make it black. And I'll just give it a height. Oh, it does not like it. Mm, I'm gonna let this be. And however I do it, it's basically um over defined. So I'm just gonna keep it as is. And now we're gonna go to the front and do the front. Obviously, a helmet in this case is symmetrical, so we're only gonna build half and then worry about the other half at the end when we just mirror them over. Right, here's our front sketch. One more time, spline. Here you need to make sure you're connecting to the end of these. If you want, you can always click above and then come pierce it later on. I'm gonna set this out here. Now you can set this at that point and make it pierce. So I know 100% that they're laying on top of each other. So we'll press Control 8 so I can look straight. Make sure that my bottom is at the right point. Here, yeah, and that's correct. So this one, we know we are mirroring, right? So we need a horizontal center line to set this arc to a curvature continuous. Here we go. Needs to be a lot closer. That looks pretty good. Might come in just slightly. All right, that looks good. Try to use some measurements so it stays black. We already know the height is 14. That's already fine. Okay. Maybe this one we can measure. Nope, too much. All right, we'll keep this. And now we're going to test out, does the boundary work better or the loft? So let's check this. If I go to my surfaces, and we've been using boundary surface a lot, and I pick on one direction, this one, the middle one, and the last one, we can definitely already see a preview, right? However, when we look from the top, we can see these are dropping in, so we would definitely need to set these normal to profile, right? Still, it's curving in a lot, and because we don't really have a guide curve in the middle, we're not really using both directions of the boundary. So it's not giving us what we would kind of like to have a much rounded piece here. Let's look at loft. So one more time, we're gonna pick this, and this. So again, we have the issue of this parts narrowing in. So we're gonna use the start and end constraint and set normal to profile on both sides. Okay, so with this one, we know this is the back of the helmet, this is the front. Usually the back of the helmet is much more rounder. So I can go to these numbers and kind of, you can see these arrows moving. Let me move my, here, just so you guys see better. I'm going to try to pick these from the bottom, so the green dots fall on the bottom. Here we go. Now once we set up the arrows, they're a lot easier to see. This is the arrow for the back, and this is the arrow for the front. So when we go up with the number, this is the back side. That's getting wider. The front, I'm going to try to stay. The back, I'm going to do 1 point, maybe 1.3, and the front maybe 1.1. So it's slightly more curved on the back side. And press OK. So now we have like a nice half dome here. We definitely need to test it out, mirror it over, and see if we have a smooth line. Just gonna do a quick mirror to test out our surfaces, especially our main body. We need to have very clear surfacing. Okay, and evaluate zebras. All right, yes, that looks great. You can see there's no line in the middle. We don't have any breakups. Good, so I'm just gonna delete this mirror, we don't need it. All right, now we're gonna come in and kind of copy this curve on the bottom and trim the bottom of our surface. So one more time, right plane, sketch. I used, so you can see it brings me the surface. If I want to do a 180 flip around, again, we can press Control 8. I'm going to use this line. And I start outside. I'll just do a 3-point spline. Just because we have a certain curve down here. And we're trying to match the best as we can. So take your time with this and make a clean cut. Right. Seems good. So all we're doing is surface trim, and I usually have it under remove. So I remove this portion and we'll be done. Right. So we got our bottom line. Now, so here's an analogy of what we're gonna do. If we look at the helmet, so we mentioned these are all curved. So up to here, we have this nice curve, right, happening. Here, let's use the end of this cut line. This part starts to stretch out now. So whatever this curve is, it comes in, and rather than rounding like the top, it's going to stretch out and then be creating this part. So we're going to come in and kind of cut this portion out and rebuild that area. So we're going to keep a nice curve or dome for just the back end and get rid of the front. So one more time on the right plane, sketch, pressing Control number 8 so I can see it. Try to find the point that's farthest back here. To start out with a spline, and I'll just follow the white line, it's easier to see for me. I'm gonna need these 2 or 3 points. Again, if you need more points in the middle of your spline, you can always right click and add insert spline point in there, or remove them if you want. Okay. You see, I'm not going all the way because we're cutting with this. So as long as I can follow the form, this is going to be the cut. And here, I'm just going to go straight down, kind of parallel or perpendicular to this baseline. We don't want to create too much of a pinch here because it'll be hard to create that surface. So here we have this. We're going to go surface, trim, and remove that portion. Okay. So basically we have this opening here. So what we will be doing right now, to give you guys an understanding of what's going to happen, we're going to create the end of the surface, the parameter for this end. Sorry. Here we go. So we'll copy this end curve here. And then we already have this edge over here. We'll create a 3D sketch from here to here. And we'll use that to make our stretched surface that's kind of curving in over at the end. And then also following this form. Once we have this built nicely, then we can come in and kind of cut out everything together on the top. All right, let's go ahead and build that portion. So one more time, we go to the right plane and do a sketch. This is simplest spline from top to bottom. Just gonna click end of the white and this horizontal. There we go. All right, that looks like it's following the curve pretty nicely. We'll set this up. It's okay. Now we need to create a spline, a 3D sketch that connects this point to this point. So go under Insert, 3D Sketch, Spline, click this end, and then we'll just click this end. Okay. So now that we're looking at this in 3D, we know this portion needs to be mirrored. Therefore, we need to make sure this is coming out straight. So when we mirror it, we don't have a weird line here. So we need to set that to be curvature continuous to a horizontal. I'm using my center line to create this horizontal, and I'm gonna give a parameter of equal curvature. Actually, down the tangency. I'm gonna do C equal. All right, as you guys can see, this pushes that part out. I'm gonna slightly bring it in so it's more realistic as a front of a helmet. And now here, we need to match this curvature, right? So we're gonna pick the end, the edge of this helmet, hold shift, and also do a curvature equal. So you can see now starting to form nicely in 3D. I'm gonna bring this. This is a graphic glitch. I can't really grab it. So this is actually where I can grab. You can kind of play with this. So you make it the bottom of the form look like an actual helmet. All right, that looks good to me. I'm gonna press OK. And kind of come here and test out my boundary surface. So let's look at our boundary surface. We may need one more 3D sketch up here, but let's see without it if we can still get a nice continuous curve here. So direction one, I'm gonna go with the simple sides here and here. And I click to flip. On the second direction, it's gonna be this one. So it is building it. Now, here we need curvature continuous because the surface needs to smooth into the other one. Curvature to face. And as you guys can see, I have my mesh on. So it didn't change. So you have to be careful. Sometimes it doesn't do it. So you can also do it here. This is the edge that's selected. Do curvature to face. I'm actually gonna push it maybe 80. You can always go to 100 as well. This one is gonna be normal to profile, right? This normal to profile and tangency influence. I'm just gonna drop the tangency influence on that one to below 50. Okay. Right? The bottom doesn't really need any parameter. Now, let's look at the surface we built and evaluate, see if it's smooth or not. Okay, that looks pretty good. It's stretching out here. This part we need to mirror over to understand. I might just push this slightly more. Let me go to my curvature continuous. As this one. Is that 46? I'm going to push it all the way to 100. That should even make it more smooth. Okay. And the other test is to mirror this and check the front, make sure we don't have a line. Feature, mirror. I can just do the surface. I don't need the top one. So my right plane. Here we go. One more time, evaluating. Pretty clean. There's no line here. Good. So we are good. I'm just gonna delete this. Say yes. All right, now we have a whole bunch of extra stuff here. We're gonna come in and draw this edge and basically cut both surfaces. So let's go to our right plane, sketch, Control 8, so I can see this. I still have this line, so I need to make sure my cut is behind, kind of goes back. So I get both surfaces. Using the spline tool, I'm going to try to now follow the black. Might have too many points in here. I could probably get rid of one. Let's just delete this one and I can push this up higher. Okay. This is going to be used to trim. That's why I'm outside of the whole shape. This is hard to see this edge. Just close up to it. And we have a sharper point over here. And a bit of time trying to get this curvature nicely. You can see this is my cut. I'm going past it because I want to cut all of those surfaces. that were extra. All right, we're getting there. Nice. That looks good. And there's surface and trim. So I'm gonna look on the side. Remove surfaces. You have to be careful to get all the surfaces that you do not want. So you don't want this. Then if there's any bits and pieces in the middle, make sure you catch those as well. There might be little pieces in the middle here. So it looks good to me. I'm gonna look at the left surfaces, make sure there's only two surfaces left and there's no floating piece. All right, nice. So now we can mirror this over and stitch everything up and test out, see if we can thicken this, if we can create a solid. So mirror. Mirroring plane and bodies to mirror. We have two surfaces and we'll knit. So this one, we cannot create a solid in our knit because we have a bunch of openings. What we can do is to thicken. Let's try to thicken. I did not merge them. Maybe would have been a good idea. So this is thickening outside. We're going to thicken inside. All right, that looks good. Turn off these and turn off my piece. You can see we have a nice main body for our helmet, right? And always good to check our evaluation. Very clean. Okay. Okay. Now we're gonna go back to the surface over here and basically I'm gonna show you guys how to build this vent hole here. So let's look at you can either delete them or you can just pull up the timeline to be back in that half of the surface that you were using here. So we're trying to make a vent hole over here. We're gonna go to, so here's the thought process behind building things. The goal is, so if you look, the vent hole is dropping inward, right? So we're gonna create a shape and kind of split the surface, and then we're gonna offset that same surface on with whatever thickness offset that we want on the back side over here. And we're going to get rid of this front one, right? So that front one won't exist. Then we're going to come in, add a few guide curves connecting this and this over here, and basically create a smooth surface coming in, ending over here. Once we have the smooth surface built, then these edges will be just a pretty easy boundary connections. Okay, it might not look so clear here, but we'll go through each step and you will see what is the plan. All right, we'll be sketching on the right plane. I'm just going to use my lines. I'm going to try to follow this as far as the intake and kind of get bigger on the top. I'll move this slightly so they match nicer. Okay, this is too tall. I want it so big. That seems better. Okay. Also, need to finish the sketch. And that's good. I wanted that to be flat, so it's an easier transition here. And we have a flat here. This doesn't have to be flat. We could actually tilt it if we wanted to. If it helps, we can set these points to be vertical. So that kind of keeps that one black. And I want to add a larger fillet up here and a smaller one down here. So let's stay with sketch fillets. On the top one, I'm going to go to 0.8. And then on the bottom one, I'll create a new fillet. I go to 0.3, actually maybe 0.25. And so this is our main cavity. We're gonna have another offsetted curve here. So these need to be large enough. So when we offset, we don't kill these curves. Okay, and good habit would be to measure things. We have that height. And again, we'll probably measure our angles too. We get everything black. This is one angle. And we have another angle here. We also need to give things heights, which we don't really have any heights. And a height to this one. So I'm trying to measure these. As long as I get it black, you guys see what the main form is. Right. So we use this to do split line on projection on this curve or surface. Say okay. You can see the surface split. We don't really need this outside. We're gonna do an offset to the inside. So we're gonna offset the surface. Inward or 0.1. That's okay. So now we have another surface. Let's double check. Yeah, on the inside. So now we can get rid of this outside one by delete face. We're not patching, just deleting. And you can see there is the surface on the inside here. Okay, so to create that vent, we need to make this slightly smaller than our main cavity. So we're gonna go on that surface, do an insert 3D sketch, and do offset on surface. So it's gonna create an offset right on here. We'll change this to 1.15. Double check not to get rid of this. Not to get rid of any curves. If you want to go slightly more, that's fine. You can do that. So I use the sketch to trim that back surface and get rid of the extras. Okay. Right, so now we have this line on the back that we need. What we need to do is create a 3D sketch from here to connect to this. So we bring in 3D sketch, use our spline tool, this end edge, and I'm going to come to the fillets. Now I have to set this and this to be tangent, and this curve and this to also be tangent. Also gonna look here, make sure. So the surface is gonna come in. So I need this to be smoother. That one doesn't matter as much. So I'm gonna push this out if I can more. So there's a nice smooth surface in here. Same thing for the bottom. So we'll go insert 3D sketch. And start spline. Here's the bottom. And go. I'm picking the surface in here, putting a tangency. And make sure it doesn't come out. And I'm gonna pick this. And here also a tangency. And push this one in so we have a smoother portion on that side. Okay. So here, hide my main sketches. Now we have these two lines. And I have this edge and these three. So I'm going to start creating a boundary surface. Start with the top and bottom. And then here, we pick this edge. And selection manager, we pick these three. Okay. It's okay, the surface going into the other surface, that doesn't really matter. We need to set our parameters. So this is the most important one. That's going to be curvature to face. So does it? It says it doesn't, but it will do it. And I'm going to push this a bit more so there's a curvature here. And press OK. We need to test out. I'm just going to click the surface, color it so it doesn't blend in. Let's make it pink. Like as you can see, it's kind of coming through here. Want to see what is this connection looking like. So evaluate zebras. All right, that's pretty clean. And then I'm going to get rid of that. We don't need the surface, so we can just hide this or delete it. There we go. So now we're going to have to close this gap over here. So whenever we have sharp edges like this, they're not ideal for making surfaces. So what we would do is we actually come in and create a boundary because this form and this form are offset. So they have the same form. So we can create a really nice boundary here. And then we have the whole parameter. We can fill the other surfaces. So then this one we can just fill surface. And that would take care of each corner. Okay, let's go ahead and build this. I go to surfaces, boundary, selection manager. time. This one, and this one. This is going to be a contact. We're not adding any parameters. This is good. Right, so now we have our indent in here. Just have to fill those. Okay, that's already getting built nicely. Okay, clean. And one more time, fill. We can try to put a tangency here if we wanted to. See, that will kind of be a good habit. All right, nicely done. You can obviously mirror this over and have it to the other side just to make this easy to view. I'm just gonna color the faces in. Let's do a dark blue for these. And then and keep that one silver. Slightly mirror this over so it doesn't look half. Just change the color so it's easier to see. We are done. Thank you for watching.